founded way back in September 1, 2005. And one of the remaining founders of this club is none other than the energetic, distinguished Toastmaster, Dr. Walter Victoria. Good evening again, my fellow characters in the different parts of the world. So, let us continue with our journey in our Toastmasters meeting for tonight. So tonight, there are 3 parts of the program. We have table topics, we have speakers who have prepared their speeches, and we also have evaluation. Without further ado, let me call on our table topics masters, let me call on the grammarian to introduce the words of the night.
For tonight, the words for tonight are the 6 pillars of character. First, trustworthiness, which means be honest, be reliable, good reputation. Number 2, respect, bold and rude, good manners, be considerate. Number 3, responsibility, plan ahead, be diligent, self-discipline. Number 4, fairness, play by the rules, listen to others, take turns. Number 5, caring, be compassionate, forgive others, gratitude. And number 6, citizenship, cooperate, obey laws, vote, and honor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alvin. I urge everyone to use the words of the night. Now, our first part of the program is the impromptu speeches. Now, without further ado, let me call on our table topics master of the day, Distinguished Toastmaster Dr. Walter Victoria.
Thank you very much, our CME. So, good evening again, all Toastmasters, and I am your government trainer. So, we have many guests for tonight, and I would like, before we go to the table topic session, since our theme for tonight is about character, physically, with our character, and also our real character, let's get to know more of each other as I invite everyone to please be at the center. Everyone. Go to the center. Let's get to know each other. Yes. With your question, please. Everyone. 2, 4, 6. How many are we? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So there are 14. Wow. 14. Right side. Ayan. Sige. Diyan, pasok. Sige. Have you played the human bingo?
Yeah.
Of course, the human bingo. But this one is about characters. So there are about 9 traits here. Traits. And you're going to ask or look for somebody and ask him or her to write his name to the appropriate character. For example, the character is loves to eat buffet. We're going to ask each and every one among the members who could that be. So you get to know each other. Okay? Huh? I don't know. You're going to read. It's a surprise actually. So for us to know the character of every individual here. And the first 3 was going to Phoenix University an award. Of course, you will ask somebody, please make sure you have a pen. Yeah. Hindi pwedeng signature. Must write his or her name on the corresponding space. It's very simple. It's human bingo. There are 9 squares here, and the moment you read, for example, you read loves to eat buffet, then you will look for somebody. If ako yun, then I will write my name. Don't write. Let him or her write. Now, process here. Duplication is not allowed. Okay? So you are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, there are 14, and I'm just asking for 9. And for example, nakalagay dito, size 6 ang always sit. Yeah, like that. Always sit. Then you have to ask. So,
Are you
yeah.
this one?
Okay. Sabay-sabay ha. Sabay-sabay ha. Yeah. Kaya gusto ko talaga. Huwag mo na yan.
You have to complete the box until everyone signs.
Yes, yung first three, please write your name muna pala. Ayan. Yung testa na. Pumunit mo na. Okay.
Our teachers, we
Yes. First, you have to write your name on the back. Okay. Sige. Who has an extra pen? Meron nyo iba? Okay. So, bahala na ka ako. Tagakuha naman ng picture. Ready? Start. Go! Read it first. Isa lang ha? Hindi pwede.
Peso. Hindi ka peso.
Okay.
Pwede ba pangalan mo?
No.
Okay.
You have to interact with each other.
Come on.
Hindi ko pwede mag-duplicate mo. Isa lang.
No, this is duplicate. Pwede niyo ako isali ha? Kasali ako. Ako ba yun? Ayaw ko sa aso? You validate natin. We have to validate it later. Okay? Pwede ako kasali ako ha. Kasali ako dyan. Kasali ako ha.
Dr. Balls are his.
Kasali ako. Ano? Oh, yeah. Ayaw mo akong competitive ha? Gusto mo ako sa human rights?
Bots, oh.
Saan ako?
Dito ka. Dito.
Ako? Bakit? Tapos mo na. Hindi ako yan. Hindi ako mag-design, di ba? Ako mag-design. Nilalagyan ko sa nagmumura. Marami.
Kasi wala picture mo.
Will validate it later. Oh, ano ba? Saan ako? Ano ako sa'yo? Ano ako mura? Okay, kung may hirap kayo sa ending, pwede magpalit kahit isang beses. Ano lang? Saan ako? I know.
About here.
Yeah. Pag nabitin kayo sa isa, pwede kayo magpalit ng isa, pwede kayo magtanong.
Dito ka.
Huwag pa kaya na. Masaya ko ng bol. Sir. Mercy.
Oh, dalawa na lang ako.
Meron ba? Tapos na ako. Ano? Ayaw pa rin. Sige. Okay, you may sit down.
Tinanong ko, yes. Kami na mga always eh.
Hindi na natapos.
Hindi ba hindi ka pwede mag-
Okay na? Okay, please sit down.
Uy, pwede ka na.
Okay na? Ayun, oh, of course. Yung mga pagkain. Pakipasa-pasa na habang tayo. So, good evening again, fellow Toastmasters and guests. This is the table topic session, or the impromptu speaking for the non-Toastmasters. 1, 2. So, we call this table topics. Wherein we're going to ask a member, or even a guest, if she likes, to respond to a certain topic for a minimum period of 1 minute to 2 minutes. I'll be hosting, or I'll be, a certain topic, then the member can respond. For a minimum of 1 minute, the moment he reaches the 1 minute mark, the green light will be flashed. Can you show the green light? 1 minute and 30 seconds can be the amber light, and 2 minutes the red light. And given a 30 seconds, max of 30 seconds to wrap up his or her thoughts. The evaluator for this portion is Ron. Yeah, Ron. And our theme for tonight is about character. Character matters. And let's check first. First 5 who made it. Let's call on Rovi. Rovi, yes. Let's call on Rovi here. Yes. Rovi, let's validate first.
Yes.
Prefers basa-basa or besa-besa versus Jean? You like besa-besa rather than Ron, do you do charity work? Always late, Simon? Are you always late? Yeah. Okay. Your cursing words? Yeah. Sometimes. Like what? Like PI, like or English or BS? English or Tagalog? PI. Leah? Animal rights advocate? Dr. Alvin, ladies first. Oh, no. Wow. JR, what's JR? Are you conservative?
Sometimes.
Really? Conservative or
My
not?
family is conservative.
How about you? How about you? Are you conservative? It doesn't. Yes, are you competitive? Achiever. And Dr. Emmy, no to nonsense? Really? So, here's the first question. You can use any of the patterns that Okay.
I know that you don't want picking the...
No. Okay. 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, so a moment of reflection. What did you learn from this activity? What did you learn from this activity? Let's hear it from Robbie.
I always believe that learning development can be summarized into its segment. We all know that 70% of what we learn comes from the experiences that we have, whether it's good thing or bad thing. It is an experience, it's a lesson, because good things give us happiness, while bad things provide us experiences. And both are very essential in our life. The 20% would probably come from the people around us, whether they are our mentors, our coaches, or our family and friends, because there is something that they provide us, which is the feedback. They can comment us, they can give suggestions and recommendations for us to improve ourselves. And the 10% will be coming from the technical side. It may be from textbooks, it may be from manuals that we learn from school. And with that, I've learned from this session that the session taught me to be able to communicate with other people, in which they could give us some characteristics of them, and with their pinch of quality or traits, I was able to get to know them more, and I was able to grasp what identities they have. And I guess that what I've learned is that in every situation, we should always try to communicate well with other people, even if we don't know each other. Still, communication is the best key for you to be able to express your opinions with other people. As I always believe, it is always important that we express ourselves rather than impressing other people.
Wow. Timer. Like one at a time. One at a time.
This is like a
This is my first
Okay,
time.
okay.
First timer. Okay. Please turn up the red light. Let's now call Rovi. Congratulations, it's your prize.
Oh,
You can have a McDonald's.
Wow.
Okay. So let's call on Kay. You're the second one who is able to finish. Cyril, nagmumura ka? Really? Honestly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? Like, in what words?
Like EI in driving.
Yeah. Okay. Francis, conservative? Really? So that's why you're on corporate attire? Dr. Ernst, you do charity work because of Rotary. That's why you're wearing it up to now. Rotary! You just come from a Rotary thing. That's part of your... Dr. Alvin is always the gentleman. Jean always first beso. Fidel, always late? Always late? Always late. Ron! Competitive or achiever? So here's your question. Timer starts. Among the 6 pillars of character that were listed, what are the 3 most important pillars of character? Trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, citizenship. Rank your first 3 most important. You want to always? Let's hear it from Kay.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My first ranking in the top one is trustworthiness. The reason for this is that, well, I have explained this to my brother. You know, trust is very delicate, and as my daughter states it, you should not be giving it easily to anybody. They should earn it. Why? Because anything can happen in a spur of the moment. And recently, something happened to my daughter, and it's about trust. So I also, because in her school, there is a time in and time out, and I know everything that she does. Somebody made a story about her, and I had to remind my daughter about trust, that she has to be careful even if that person is a relative. Second, fairness. Sometimes there are people who will be always unfair in you, regardless if they're friends or relatives. There are always 2 sides to the story. Sometimes, and most of the times what happens is there's only one side that is being heard. And it's unfair to the person who is being wrongly accused or dejected because somebody always exaggerates the story. And lastly, the third, because this is mostly what I have been doing in my entire life, caring, be compassionate, forgive others, and gratitude. No matter what happens, you always try to be the bigger person. No matter how wrong the person has, no matter what kind of wrong the person has done to you, still be good, and learn to forgive and let go. Those are the top 3 values that I respect and I would like to teach my daughter.
Thank you. Okay, here's your prize. Yeah. So now we learn from Kay that trust is delicate. But if you go to Mercury drug, trust is different. But it's also delicate. Okay? Let's go to the third one.
With different people.
With different sense and flavor. Okay. Let's go to Char. Wow, Char. It's very interesting. Rodel? Engineer Rodel? You also curse? You also utter cursing words like BI, BS. Yeah. So, and Roby, competitive also achiever.
Competitive.
Since all of our guest evaluators are, competitive and an achiever also, and I too is also an achiever. So it looks like Dr. Emily is the only one who does not like nonsense conversations. So please, we're going to talk with her. Make sure that she will understand your joke. Okay? Okay. So your question is, I'm going to think of a question. For you, how many percent out of 100% defines the character of a person? And why? Yeah, like there's a beauty contest. Let's hear it from Char.
For me, character fully defines the person because, for example, you are a caring person, so you carry that character when you go to a place, when you go to an organization. You are being tagged as a caring person. So even if they don't know you, they don't know you by name, you will be remembered as caring or something responsible, trustworthy, even though they do not know you that much, like your whole background or anything. And for me, character building, that's why for me character building is important and necessary for a person, because once your character is tainted, so it's so hard for you to regain it. And I do wish that all people will also put substance over form. That's they will look more to the character of the person than what gossips or bad words they receive to that certain person.
Good. And moving on later to social parts. And later, Snowy wants to deliver a prepared speech. Now, we already heard the 3 table topics respondent, and since we have non-Toastmaster guests, I guess we have Jean and JR. If you want, you may want to try and going to think of a certain topic. Yeah, Jean, let's go on, Jean. First time.
I'm not good at it, so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not good.
I'm going to think of the easiest topic.
Please.
Jean, what is your most hated character about yourself? Let's hear it from Jean. Hated trait. Most hated trait about yourself.
Okay. I'm a good guest. Hated trait. I will not lie. I am not perfect. So there's this something that I would like about me. I'm afraid of unknown.
I'm always afraid of knowing. I'm always afraid of something that I don't know. And that is the scariest thing about it. And that is the scariest thing I can think of being afraid of something that you don't know. So today, I did try to attend because I want to know what is Toastmasters is. So this is a one step for me to accomplish or to surpass that that fear to be afraid of something that I don't know. Okay, so thank you.
Last call, JR, would you like to try? Yeah. The most out there time. You went there after a couple of months. After seeing it, yeah. I guess it's your third club. You've been to iConnect and what clubs? What other clubs?
Just
iConnect. Just iConnect. And this clubs as well. So this is the third club. You're happy. Okay, so let's hear from JR. You have 1 to 2 minutes. Maximize your time. And what do you hate most about a certain person in terms of character? Yeah. You can think, and your timer will start once you utter the first word. Hate most about a certain person in terms of character. Let's hear from JR.
Yes.
30 seconds. Yeah. Quiet. Stinky.
Okay, so a trait that I don't like or I hate to someone is being selfish. In any endeavor, teamwork is important. For example, I first understood teamwork when I started working with my family business. And I was young at that time, and what my parents taught me is to work as a team. So I'm one of the people who work in the company. And each and every member in the family work hard. No one is exempted. And I realized that that's really important in anything that you want to achieve. Our business stayed still existent for 18 years. And I believe that that is a foundation that you have in your business. And if I was selfish or one of our family members is selfish, I believe that we wouldn't survive during the times of financial crisis. So I believe that just look the opposite. If a person is selfish, he would achieve what he wants in life, and our family business is just a proof that working together is really important in anything that we want to achieve.
Thank you. There you have it, our 4 brave souls, and we're going to read this again maybe later, but as of now, I just browsed that most of us are competitive and achievers. And in terms of our cursors, those cursors that have are Del, Engineer Del, followed by Ron, and Imariti also. Okay. So, yeah. So what triggers? I'm not going to ask what triggers you in, or because in some of my office mates just become as part of their vocabulary, and I hope that it's not part of your daily vocabulary. You can utter it maybe when you're angry, or when you're so stressed, or when you just want to express yourself, your emotions. Best said when you're alone inside your room, but not in front of everybody. Because again, character defines personality of a person, and first impression lasts. Back to our Toastmaster TV.
Let's proceed to the next part of the meeting. And for tonight, we have 5 energetic speakers who will be delivering their projects on different levels in the Pathways program. Our first speaker for tonight will be delivering a speech project for level 1B for innovative planning, evaluation, and feedback. May I ask Area Director Dr. Leah Benson to read the objectives of the speech project?
The purpose statement says that states of this project is for the member to clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring.
No, this one is for.
Sorry.
This one is for.
Nandito saya.
Rewind. Right. For our first speaker, the purpose statement says that it is for the member to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback to a second speech. So meaning I have to come back again and deliver this. And then the second statement says that the member should present a speech and receive feedback from a evaluator.
Thank you, Area Director Leah. The time to deliver the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. The title of the speech is Dangerous Advice, to be evaluated by Area 11 Director Leah Texan, Advanced Communicator. Hello, Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen. Let us welcome our first speaker for tonight, Toastmaster Engineer Cyril Kuna.
Thank you so much, distinguished Toastmaster Ramsey, fellow Toastmasters, and guests of the evening. Advice are like mushrooms. The wrong ones can be fatal, said Charles Mackenzie. Has anyone here experienced the feeling of being helpless or distressed? Yes. Okay, thank you. And then suddenly a friend comes by and asks us what the problem is. And of course, we tell him everything. And then we instantly take in his advice without much scrutiny. Only later do we find out that we are in a much deeper water than where we were before. And we are only left with regret. This aspect of our lives happens so many times, and unfortunately up to now, I have not yet found a fail-proof solution that would allow us to instantly determine whether or not this suggestion coming from a friend would put us to the top of the podium or perhaps bury us 6 feet below the ground. If only there was a time machine that would allow us to go back in time, say 2 weeks, 2 days, or even just 5 minutes, that would already be enough for us to undo all these wrong advices that we have applied in our lives. And by then, I must say that life would then be such a paradise. I remember a scene in the movie Pearl Harbor where the setting was in a conference room. There, President Roosevelt and his cabinet were contemplating on whether or not to commence military exercises on the US 7th Fleet in preparation for possible Japanese aggression. But what happened there was they listened to the wrong guy. And later, the results proved to be shocking. For only a matter of 11 minutes, the entire 7th Fleet was completely crippled, and the death tolls exceeded the total number of American casualties that have been accrued during the entire World War I. But for a much smaller scale, I do remember heeding the advice from an old friend, and that was in high school. And I was in my adolescence. I had this huge crush on a very beautiful girl, and I must say that she had the beauty that could launch 1,000 ships, and the humor that could make the ugliest bulldog smile. Whenever in her presence, I tried hard for my hands not to shake. And I have tried to maintain the most normal conversation possible. And yes, the hands did not shake, but sadly, the lips started to shift. And prior to that, prior to our farewells, I had asked a friend of mine for advice who was considered to be the Romeo of the cast. And he told me, Sai, you should confess your feelings, for if you do not, then you will never know. And I had spent a whole week contemplating on that advice up until I had the guts to tell her what I feel for her. And I used my cell phone and texted the 3 magic words any guy would tell a woman to whom he's attracted to. But sadly, the reply only left me petrified. And I have spent the remaining days of that summer blaming my friend for what an awful advice giver he really was. But then he just told me, well, that is a gamble. At least now you know, he said. Friends are not the only sources of dangerous advice. Society also plays its part. Have you ever heard of the advice, just be yourself? A very simple advice given to a complex society is sure enough to stir up some commotion in the near future. But from my perspective, an advice only becomes dangerous whenever we fail to see where we stand or what environment we live in when we take it. Pearl Harbor would never have happened if only facts have been acknowledged. I myself would not have experienced the pain of rejection if I had only known that some advices do carry some risks. And lastly, some advices, though as simple as they may be, do have their deeper meanings. The world sure is full of dangerous advices, but one thing I can say for sure is that the sober mind is something that we can use in order to make the right decisions.
First Master Engineer Sari Laguna. And of course, don't worry because you will receive very useful advice later on. Let's move on to our second speaker for tonight. He will deliver a speech on Level 1C for Dynamic Leadership, Evaluation and Feedback. This is his second speech for the project. The objectives are the same as of the first speech project. The time to deliver the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. The title is The Journey of a Scholar, Part 2. to be evaluated by LD1 Rovi Peñaranda. This is
He will be evaluated based on eye contact. That's the major, or that's the feedback from the first speech. So this time, he will be evaluated mostly based on eye contact.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bote Victoria. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, let us welcome Advanced Communicator Gold, Advanced Diplomist, Dr. Alvin Sanchez.
Pleasant good evening for everyone. My title of the speech is The Journey of a Scholar, Part 2. Last meeting, I discussed with you the stages of my scholarship from high school up to college, and all of them with passing colors. Now, I also discussed with you last meeting my struggles during my master's degree, and which my advisor took advantage of my innocence because I just left from the seminary and exploited my innocence. Now, after that, I went to pursue teaching as part of my career. Lo and behold, after a term in the private school, I went to work in a public school as assistant to the president. It was 1997 when I entered the public school, as I personally been invited by the president to assist him. And it was a normal course. March 1990, usually the second term ends, we are to submit our final grades. Then, of course, as a faculty, we usually check our class records. Who are those who disappeared and didn't apply? Based on the records, no requirements, no attendance. As a faculty, what do you think will be the grade of the student? Okay. So I went through the records. So I submitted the grading sheets. Then on the mid-morning of that March, the phone rings. It was from the office of the mayor. I was being asked to go to talk to the mayor. But you know how stubborn am I? I didn't go there. But they sent their bodyguards to fetch me. Good enough, one of my friends, a lawyer, was present. And I was there inside the room, locked. And he was warned by the lawyer, since you have no arrest warrant, you cannot just get Mr. Sanchez. But they gave a stern warning that they will come up. But I'm still stubborn. I don't care. So what I did, I have no choice to use my access, my powers of my ability. So we contacted the highest office of the land, the office of the president. So I contacted my friend, and in the afternoon, we contacted the congressman of that city. Then he went over, brought along the chief secretary of Bex, and there was an Armalite along with the service vehicle. Not knowing by then, should they harm me and get me, 1,000 Muslims underground of Quiapo will storm the city. So it was really a major trap. If they trap me, there will be a bloodbath in that city. So my friend Muslim came over. That was in 1998. Good enough, the mayor didn't pursue that angle. Later I learned these are graduating students. But the wrong thing that they did, they should have told me before I submitted the grading sheets. I could no longer take or bring back the grading sheets that I submitted. Why? It will pull down the reputation. And since I came from the seminary, what I've done, I've done. I cannot undo that particular grading sheets. If you want, you change the grades. And I don't care. What's the moral lesson? The moral lesson is this. I gained a friend. A friend who is willing to die for me. A friend who will kill for me. And until now, we're good friends. That's why the Bible is correct. Greater friend that you have who will lay down his life for you. And as such, every time he calls me for my skills, advice, for example, he was being asked to run for senator, I told him, bro, it's better to be a kingmaker than to be part of the slave. Although there are offers of 20 billion, that's to be part of the slave. Right now, we're still friends. Whenever he asks me to edit his speech, I come over for free. How could you repay somebody with your life? You're indebted for that. Isn't it? So therefore, if you found one just true friend like that, you will never perhaps say a friend is really a true friend, whatever. That's why you could only count in your hands what true friends in your life. There is no amount of money, I will tell you, that could equal that kind of friendship. That's why during the wake of my father, even though there are meetings with some ministers, he came over to the wake. Sabi niya, I cannot forgo not meeting you, bro. So even it's the last night, he canceled all his appointments just to see me, particularly for the wake of my father last July 1. July. So that's the one part of the journey of a scholar. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alvin Sanchez, for that wonderful story. You are very rich in your friend. Now let us move on to our next speaker for tonight, who will deliver her speech for Level 2A for Persuasive Influence, Understanding Leadership Styles. May I ask the evaluator, Advanced Committee Bonds from the Victoria, to read the objectives?
There are two purpose statements. First, the purpose of this project is for the member to identify his or her primary leadership style or styles. And the last one is, the purpose of this speech is for the member to share some aspect of his or her primary leadership style or discuss leadership styles in general.
Thank you very much. The time to deliver the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. The title of the speech is Leadership Styles, to be evaluated by Advanced Communicator Bronze, Advanced Leader Bronze, Romandel Victoria, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Let us welcome Toastmaster Char Barinaga.
Great leaders come from all walks of life. Seldom do they follow some predetermined path to leadership. While a few of them may have been born leaders, in most cases, great leaders didn't even make it to the most likely to succeed category in their high school yearbooks. Almost all successful leaders overcome struggles, obstacles, and trials and failures along the way. For many, that's what defines their leadership styles and drives them. But what is leadership style? In businessjargons.com, a leadership style is defined as the behavioral pattern a leader adopts to influence the behavior of his followers. To give us examples, I will be sharing with you two of the most famous leaders in the field of business and their corresponding leadership styles. First on the list is currently the second wealthiest man in the world, according to Forbes, and that is Bill Gates. When Bill Gates retired from Microsoft in 2008, he left a legacy of being a demanding and abrasive boss. Yet, he encouraged and nurtured enormous creativity and innovation from people. And he also made a point of recognizing achievements. The programmers, designers, MBAs, programmers, and all the people who regularly attended Gates' development meetings often said that he frequently interrupted to question and challenge assumptions. Given those details, there's a little doubt that Gates relied heavily on the authoritarian kind of leadership. He took charge and he let everyone know he was in charge. But like so many successful people, Gates also relied on other blends of other styles. He was aware that being an authoritarian leader is not conducive to innovation. Control freaks hinders creativity. Authoritarian kind of leadership is most effective in fast-changing situations where fast decisions is required. Most of Microsoft's success can be attributed to Gates' willingness to make decisions on the run. Lastly, but definitely not the least, is Walt Disney. The founder of the most prolific and profitable entertainment company adopts various leadership styles over the years. Though during his formative years, Disney built the beginnings of his empire based mostly on the participative leadership. Participative leadership is a leadership style that values the inputs of team members and peers, though the ultimate responsibility of making the final decision rests with the leader. In many vintage photos, Disney is seen sitting in a drawing table with a dozen other artists, sometimes as many as 40, meticulously plotting scenes and characters. Disney also knew that too many cooks could spoil the soup, so he made sure that people understood the vision he has for the story and how he wanted them told. And that is mastering the job of participative leadership. Surely, there are a lot of other leadership styles out there, paired with leaders who excel in each and every styles. But personally, I choose the examples of Gates and Disney because I too is in the business field, and personally, I use the participative and authoritative kind of leadership styles. Though I'm more of participative and I'm only authoritarian when a situation asks me to be so. Though I really wish that I could say that why I choose Gates and Disney's examples because their wealth mirrors mine. But kidding aside, because I am not too loud of a person and because of my professional background, I am more comfortable with the participative kind of leadership. As an accountant, I'm used to working on my own. And also, I'm working with people with the same background and who knows the job by the books. I trust that each of us can deliver the tasks on hand individually. And what I just do is to wrap up the work to produce successful output collectively. But there are times also that we have to beat deadlines after deadlines. And that's the time that we have to work on a predetermined result I set to my group, which is based also on the authority and jurisdiction given to me by the management. I believe that leadership positions does not come easily, and finding our groove as leaders requires failing on occasions. But the learnings from that failures on how you overcome it to become better leaders will ultimately stand to benefit you and most importantly to the people you are living with.
For that very informative and revealing speech. Let us move on to our fourth speaker for tonight, who will be delivering this speech project on level 2C for dynamic leadership, introduction to mentoring. May I ask Area Director Lilian Texan to read the objective of the speech?
All right. So for the audience, for Adele to clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring. And the second statement is for the speaker to share some aspect of previous experiences of partnership.
Thank you, Area Director Lilian. The time to deliver the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. The title of the speech is The Power of Mentoring, to be evaluated by Area Director Lilian Texan. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, let us welcome Toastmaster Engineer Adele Garcia.
Thank you. Yes, fellow Toastmasters and guests, good evening.
Good evening.
So, how did you get where are you today? So, most of us have experiences and challenges on how we level up our professional and personal goals. So, but without the help of the dedicated mentors, the legacy of knowledge, wisdom, and skills cannot be transmitted from one person to another. So today, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I would like to share with you my experience as protege. So, actually, almost 4 years ago, I resigned to my work. It was 5 years in construction industry, and I decided because I felt that my growth was not progressing. So I decided to enroll in a language school for which I could develop my critical thinking skill in English writing and public speaking. And at that time, it was my pivot point to seek to be the best version of myself. My goal was to improve and develop my communication skills and adapt more skills. Need to have a higher position, or to have high responsibility for me to at the time that I can back to my industry. So, but among of these awesome specialists and mentors, I appreciated most, and this one is one of a kind mentor, and let's call him Chris. He's a teacher, champion debater, traveler, corporate trainer, and a friend of mine. He's an English teacher. Unlike of typical, boring, and intimidating English teacher, he's a very energetic, witty, and funny guy. His class was a mix of fun and learning experience. I remember one time in my first encounter with him when he discussed about the type of sentences. Actually, I don't know about that type of sentences. So, how would you? What are the type of sentences? These are like simple, compound, complex. And these topics before, when I was in high school and college, I really never appreciated it, since he taught it in a very simple, interesting, and dynamic way. So his teaching approach is really tailored in every student. And on that first encounter, he invited me to join their Borawan beach journey. So I took that as a chance for me to engage myself with positive people and who wants to learn also and fun as well. And after 2 to 3 months, he gave me a role as the editor-in-chief of his website. And in that stage, my communication skill was just progressing, and a part of that responsibility is to take over or give direction to the students who want to participate on that project. Although I felt the encouragement and trust to my mentor, which want me to achieve my goal. And however, at that time, the said project was not totally successful at all because I need to leave the Philippines to work abroad. So with that, without Chris, maybe I wouldn't be here to share my experience. In one way or another, some of these traits are very distinguishable with our very own Dr. Bolts Victoria. As I remember, during our first encounter, before I delivered my first speech, he built a rapport very quickly for when he discussed our personal stories of our lives. So, for me, let's honor him with a round of applause. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, in my past and present experience as protege, the power of mentoring has fundamental ingredients that put mentoring in a higher rate. These are the combination of listening skills, inspiration, and trust. However, this won't work without the help or without the commitment of the prodigy at the same time the discipline. Therefore, I believe that before you ask someone's a hand, you need first to touch the person's heart. Pleasant evening to everyone.
Thank you very much, Engineer Bill, for that wonderful. Let's move on to our last speaker for tonight, who will deliver his speech for Level 3A for Innovative Planning. The project is a proposal. The purpose of this project is for the member to practice developing and presenting a proposal. The time to deliver a speech project is 5 to 7 minutes. The title of the speech is Repainting of Queenswood Condominium. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, tonight our speaker is the chairman of Queenswood Condominium's House Improvement Committee. Let us pretend to be the unit owners of this particular condominium. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, let us welcome distinguished Toastmaster Dr. Walter Victoria.
Good evening, fellow unit owners. Good evening. May I have your attention, please? Stop writing first, because this is a very important meeting. And on behalf of the committee members, I would like to thank you for sharing your valued time for tonight. Don't worry, dinner has been prepared, and we're going to just hold our meeting for about 30 minutes with your question and answers later. So, let us introduce the other members of the committee of the house improvements of our very own condominium. We have Engineer Rodel Garcia. Yes. We have Engineer Cyril Unet. Sirs to be acknowledged. Why are you laughing? This is a serious meeting. We have Judge Attorney Capital Victoria. Yes. And of course, we have the very busy architect, Dia Nexon. Yes. This is very important. So, as we all know, our very own Twin Tower condominium was built in 1999. So, how many years now? Next year is going to be 20 years. So, the last time that it was repainted was 5 years ago, 2013. How many units do we have? For the benefit of our new owners, I guess you just bought 2 units?
Yes, I guess.
Yes. So every unit is standard and uniform. Each unit is 77 square meter. So we have 2 towers. All in all, we have 200 units per building, total of 400 units. Except for the penthouse because it's doubled. So we have 48 penthouse units for the building. So that's from the 2nd floor up to the 3rd, from the 3rd floor up to the penthouse. Except for the commercial areas like McDonald's, Mercury, Spa that you always see. So those comprise at the ground level. Now, it was 5 years ago, and tonight we really have to work on the aesthetics of our building, and we're going to give you the initial proposal. So we have identified 2 basic solutions to be considered. Again, this is just for your initial. Because as unit owners, you have the power also to give your suggestions and give your comments before we submit our proposal to the board of directors. So our committee did our research. Of course, we got many quotations, and these are the 2 possible solutions. Option 1 is the conventional repainting or waterproofing, and the second one is the modern type, the exterior wall cladding. What are the works to be done? Under option 1, same as before. Scraping the exterior walls, repairing the cracks, applying the waterproofing, and actual painting of the exterior walls. When the second option, the modern one, aside from these works for the option 1, we're going to install the aluminum composite panels or the ACP to the blank exterior concrete walls. Maybe Engineer Rodel, tell us what's the importance of the ACP?
ACP, it's a better way on how to put cladding on your wall instead of doing painting works, because you will just install frames around the building and then put some aluminum cladding that makes your building more aesthetically, more sense in aesthetic.
Yes.
So it's more beautiful and more easy way on how to clad a building.
Yes. In fact, the older structures in Makati are shifting to the ACP style whenever they go to they decide for a renovation. Do you agree, Engineer Cyril?
Yes, sir.
Or do you have any more suggestion or about the ACP? Okay. So when we use the ACPs are water resistant, fire retardant, and easily clean. Just imagine we're just going to use neutral cleanser and water. So how many years for the period of completion? Same. We're going to finish either option 1 or option 2 in a span of 6 months. Those who proposed committed for 6 months to do the repainting. And this is very important because for the option 1, the traditional is 26 million. Or if we do it in 10 years, that's going to be double, 52 million. For the option 2, it's 38 million. Because option 1, every 5 years, but the option 2, based on our research, it's going to last for about 10 to 15 years. And based on research, it translates to cost savings over time despite a higher initial outlay. And we observe as a committee that the ACP may be the more permanent and modern solution. As a committee, we're pushing the option 2. Now, very important is our proposed assessment per unit. All units must pay this amount. And for the option 1, we're gonna compute, divided by all the units, we're going to give a one-time payment of 47,190 pesos. We can divide it into 4 quarterly payments with no modal factor, meaning to say 11,797.50 per quarter. Whereas with option 2, it's going to be 68,800 or a quarterly payment of 17,225. So, fellow unit owners, you are here, and again, your presence is very important, and we want to hear any suggestion. You may write us or email us if you have any comments or suggestions, and you're given up to November 30. Yes. Because after that, we're going to evaluate as a committee, we're going to push with this, and we're also trying, in terms of assessment, to look for maybe those who will finance. We're going to put it at 8% in 5 years. That will entail an additional cost for those who cannot pay the dues of 68,800. So, if we're going to pay it in 5 years, we can also do that, like financing with an additional of about 16,765 over the fees. Any question? Any question? Any more? Architect Leah, do you have any more comments before we wrap up this meeting?
Go ahead with the design. I'm happy with it. Even if you're talking about the computation.
Oh, you're the architect. You're the architect. And you're part of the committee. Support us, okay? And how about Judge, our attorney Victoria?
The question is, how do they come with an estimate?
No, you're part of the committee. You're going to support us.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're.
We have done several procurements. We have 7 and 7
Yes.
for this project. So.
Okay. So with that, fellow unit owners, again, your voice is very important. If we did not hear from you up to November 30, then the decision of the committee will be final and will be submitted for the final approval of the board. Good evening to all, and you may now take your dinner. Thanks for coming again. And good night.
Victoria for that proposal. So let us have our break for
Yes. 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yes, break. Break lang, kaya lang. Okay. Yeah. May coffee tayo, courtesy of Dr. Alvin. We have, again, for pizza, and we have Dunkin' Donuts, care of cake. Yes. 10 minutes lang tayo, then we proceed to the evaluation. Hindi also yung ating crowd yung gabi.
Radel,
Yes.
kailan PUP ka?
PUP mo.
Ay na. Wala ka. Ha? Hindi, I grew up in PUP. But I did not study PUP.
Ano siya?
I grew up in the campus because my father picked me up from school
Oh,
and
okay.
bring me to the campus until 9:15. That's the time we go. So that's our usual routine every from Monday to Friday.
Wala mo na wala.
Ha?
Wala mo na.
Kasi nakita ko, may common friend tayo. Si
Ah.
Marian.
Si Marian. Okay. Si Marian, yes. Batchmate.
Naging teacher si Marjun.
Hindi. Nakapasa ko yun.
Si Marjun, head na siya ngayon ng CE.
Yun nga.
We are together in one church.
Talaga.
Head na siya.
Okay, good. Common friend.
Mainit? Ha?
Sobrang init.
Ilan lang ito? Ilan lang ba yung house? 13 lang. How many are we? Lahat ba magkakasaya? Ay! We have iced tea. This one is Asta. So, ano, Mido?
Salmon. May fish yun.
Alam ko itong guy.
May meron yung...
Ay, wala na.
Pero yun...
Salmon pala. Bilas isda?
Lasay ko tapos meron pala yung...
Ulang lang na. Bilis ah. Naman tayo na.
Bilisan lang sa mulo.
Oh, ito pa wala. Cheeseburger. Ito pa. Saan ka na umuwi? Here.
Marami po sa Magallanes.
Magallanes. So, mga Makati. Pero do you work or?
Sa
Google News. Ay, tama, ikaw yung nag-sa akin naman yun. Sa text yun. Hindi ka, nangako ka ng atin ka kasi hindi ka nag-reply. Napunta ka pala sa kabilang club, noong day na yun. Kasabay mo siya, no eh. Dalawa kayo magkasabay. Yun! Cyril. Tamo siya, nakailang speech na siya. Same day kayo dapat atin. Yan. Ay, hindi yan pati talagugin. Ito pala yun. Siya yung sabi ko, taga-may site, taga-Google Philippines. Siya pala yun. May donuts tayo. Pero may nandun na ito na ka namin.
Ano po ito mga
Saan mo ba? Wala. Saan mo? Hindi naman kakalit. Bagay yung ice cream pinahin ko sa nakabuli. Grabe pa ito. 2 days. Saan mo? Hindi ba yun yung
Yeah, kind of. Got them eh. Yeah, these are pictures of new life. No, they're pictures.
Pictures.
It can be an HDL, but it can be
Yung legit na din yan, ginawa namin. So, ano siya, 4 Saturdays yun. 3 Saturdays naman. Kasi hindi ka matutupo ng isang ano lang, di ba? So, required.
Sa Victory, we had 4 sessions. Tapos, 3 groups. Kasi there were like 30.
Pero when she is scrap, so all the materials were bought sa ano, sa TI.
PI-based na.
Oo, ano yun. Speech therapist talaga kailangan. Buti may available pa sila. Para si Donnie, nag-speech craft ng madaling araw din, di ba? Oo, tumatawa.
Parang complete attendance tayo, no? Kahit tatlo.
Yan.
So, Sir Don,
Kahit madaling araw siya nag-speech craft, di ba?
Ang klase, kung meron ilaw. Kung madaling araw.
Oo, nag-speech craft niya.
Dahil,
Nag-speech craft siya, madaling araw.
baka night shift kasi yun. Transfer pala.
Bakit naman ko? Grabe ka ako.
Hindi, no?
kasi
Madaling araw.
Because they need
Alas tatapat.
So far, wala pang nakita ng PM na ganun ka. 6 gloves, 6 pads, assistant director pa, lab coach.
si Noel kasi nakakoncentrate siya sa isang club. Pero he's a member of two clubs.
So, usap-usap muna tayo, pero Toastmasters, malapit na yung contest season. Just in case you want to join, just tell me. In fact, with other divisions, next month na yung lahat ng area contest nila. No? Tayo ay January yan.
Eh kasi ako prepared. Kasi ikaw si Jeff
Kailan ko pang mag-practice
Doon yung parang nasa...
Kaya mo yan, ano ka ba? Wala si Kathy ngayon, no?
Si Kathy nasa...
Masayaw?
Ayun na sila na yun.
Kailan ba kayo? Kasi busy na.
Pakain naman. Yung ginawa ko church namin ako. Kasi kaya ko seminary. Yung pastor nila. Tumatawa ka. So, that's acting 101. Tumatawa na kasi kasi nagulat ka. Wait guys, palakpakan natin sa Rodel. First time na tinawag mo siya, hindi siya nabigla. Actually, wala sa script yun eh. Hindi na alam na magiging committee sila. Kaya magaling umarte si Rodel. Ito, estado. Si Eden, si Eden, ano tawag ito? Ilulog ba? Ilaglag.
Yan ang problema ko. Very convenient.
Ilaglag eh.
Nawa ka na. Hindi mo lang kayo Juliet.
Hindi naman sila lahat. Si Rodel yan eh. Gulat eh.
Kinuloy ko na lang.
Akala ko hindi na ba sa
Yan nakita naman eh.
Actually, kanina,
Wala kasi square meter, pero gano'n kalaki yun.
Last 2 minutes. Last 2 minutes tayo.
Hindi kasi nakalagay, kaya hindi ko masabi kung mahal ko. Kaya lang, yung iniisip ko kasi, 5 to 7 minutes. Okay. 5 to 7 minutes.
Mamapres.
Masyadong business partner.
Iya, try mo yung po. Meron na yan. Try na yan.
15. Mas mura siya dun sa NXT.
Networking din siya.
Hindi lang ang pinadala ng product ng stocks. Lumaw pa yun.
Pero nasa monthly.
Kasi pictures ka ng mga fire, di ba?
Kaya work in the same building.
Oo, di ba? Kaya yung bilhin siya, PNP o PAL. Correct.
Let's just say exclusive hands. Pero sabay eh.
What's the name? Yun.
Yeah, PNP Financial Center. I just realized.
Ano yung mga mentor mo?
Yes.
May kasama ang girl dati.
Siya, she's pregnant, so she's not very mobile. We limit her.
Tayo pa tayo mo, siya yung division
Tabletop.
tabletop yung size.
Yes.
So December 8, we're going to have parang rookie contest sa mga palo. Hindi tayo sa mga. Wala. Ganun sa amin. Divide. Kasi di ba 500? Kasi nilibre na nila.
Sino ko pa-contest ka sa meeting?
Yung ano,
Si Greg Jean, supposed dito, pero nakaka-50 na siya na numari pa lang eh. LBN. Hindi ka natin. Napunta rin siya si Greg, di ba? Hindi na sa long picture. Bakit mo siya? Kaya siya. Ano ba sa akin niya? Hindi ko nakikita. Game na. Okay. Magkabit tayo.
Okay, that ends our break. Good evening again, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Let us proceed to the third and last part of our meeting, which is the evaluation portion. Now for tonight, let me call on our general evaluator, our president, and competent communicator, Frances Ponce.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the evening, Ms. Karen Bashut. Good evening, Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. My name, once again, is Francis, and I will be the general evaluator for today's meeting. And the general evaluation consists of 3 parts. The first one, in the first part, I will be calling my individual speech evaluators for them to provide the speeches. And the second part is the evaluation of the functionaries, I mean the reports that they will be having here. And the third one is the overall general evaluation of the meeting. The table topics will also be part of the first part. Okay. Now, may we call on Rovi Piñarada from the BPI Toastmasters Club. Ron. Okay, sorry. Ronald.
Before
PNB first, before BPI.
Alright, we have Toastmaster Ronald Ibnalan from PNB Toastmasters Club to provide his evaluation for the table topics session.
Thank you very much, Francis, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation, Dr. Borcayo. First of all, I really appreciate everyone's stories tonight, and I hope that I get to hear more. So let me first evaluate your table topics for today, or for tonight. But I really appreciate how you made everything very interactive, because truthfully, Rovi did not expect that he'll be one of the most because he was just very competitive.
She just wanted to win.
Exactly. And it's very effective when you really want to get to have speakers for the table talks, because we know that if we ask people one by one if they want to go in front, you rarely get some volunteers, and that's very effective. In the future, and if ever I get again to evaluate for this club, I would love maybe we could run down few. I know that we have limited time, but I hope we could also run down on the speech patterns, maybe the three most important, which is the prep, SMG, and the DPF, especially that we have also guests for tonight. And also, I hope as well that I would love to see you prepare more questions, not on the spot, so that we can think of more effective questions so that our speakers will be able to express themselves very clearly. And also just a few note, well, I'm a postmodern guy, and I just hope that, because I saw in the paper or in our game that it says, you are a gentleman if you put ladies first. Sorry, my apologies, but I do not believe, because first, ladies first actually comes from, or the etymology, or rather the culture of us putting ladies first is because we believe that men are superior than women, and women should need to go first. But I don't believe that, because women are strong and independent, right? There is some kind of a license based on gender, that if you're a girl, it's just fine that you go first. But I believe that our achievements and our success should be based on merits and skills, and not just on gender. Yes, there's a reason I'm wearing a pin, because I advocate for gender equality. Well, but
Dr. Rodney is the most gentleman, followed by Rovi.
that's fine, and that's fine, because I understand, because that's the culture that we were brought up with. And now let's go to the individual speakers, the volunteers for tonight. For Rovi, what did you learn for tonight? He used PREP, or actually he used PREM. That's position, reason, example, and message. And I actually appreciate that you use statistics and numbers, because it increased your credibility tonight. And I hope in the future, I would love to see you move more, because movement, it says confidence, credibility, and emotion. Confidence, because if you stand right here and you stand confidently, then the people will look at you and they will believe in you, and that will further increase your credibility, because they can see you move, they can see you use the entire stage. And especially, it's more important is eye contact. If you look at the eyes of every participant or every member, then you convey emotions. But overall, I really love that you rose up to the challenge of answering first. Congratulations, Rovi. A round of applause, please. Yes, Rovi. For Kay, congratulations as well. The three most important pillars of character. And she used PREP, and position, reason, example, and again restating your position. your question is really difficult, I know, because you are tasked to rank all 6 and just choose 3. One tip actually is use the power of negation, because you have a lot of stories with you, I know, and that's very commendable. Because in table topics, we should also have, or we should always have, default stories within us. Core stories where we can get our lessons or our messages. And that, if you are tasked to choose 3, use the power of negation. Power of negation means that you do not choose 3, you just choose 1. Based on the story of your daughter, because your daughter's story is very strong. So sometimes if we do table topics, sometimes we feel that we are required to answer the question as is. But that's the power of negation. Sometimes power of negation is very effective in answering. But generally, I really love how you answered. Congratulations, Kay. Next, we go to Char. Yes, Char. So how many percent is character? That's a very beauty queen question, beauty contest question. And she used prep as well. Position, reason, example, and position. And I love that you were able to be vulnerable and at the same time strong. That's very important in answering table topics. You share part of you to the audience, but at the same time, you tell them and you show them that you're strong enough to share this story. In the future, I would love to see you share more personal story, and you can use a story messaging game, because sometimes people will think or rather will listen to you if they know you personally, because sometimes they can relate to your story and it will make your table topics more effective. But generally, just standing right here in front and answering that question, congratulations, that's very commendable. Next, we have Jean. Jean used SMG or story messaging game. And actually, I put here that your introduction is very catchy. I will not lie, I am not perfect. Sometimes it's very important that if we are asked a question, we answer right away. And I will forgive if you said no, I'm not good. That's fine because it's your first time. But I really commend that introduction because it caught the audience attention. And you also have a great story. You know, people will be able to relate, because I know that most of us, if not all, fear the unknown. We are afraid to take risks. And that is a very commendable core story that you have. In the future, I would love you to use the power of faking it. Fake it till you make it. I know it's really, really nerve-wracking to be standing in front of people because you're thinking that they will criticize you. But right now, I'm telling you, you can use the power of faking it till you make it, because I'm doing it right now. Number 1, modulate your voice. This is one thing that I have learned in the call center, because if you modulate your voice, even though you're not saying anything with sense, they will believe you because you can control your voice. Second is eye contact, because if you look at the eyes of the people, they will look at you and believe that whatever it is that you're saying, even though it's not believable. And lastly, the importance of stance, the way you stand. And since it's also a very beauty queen question, we need to have a core position in front, because this is our comfort zone. So stand right here and just use the entire stage throughout your speech. But congratulations, that's very brave and a very great story. Congratulations. And lastly to JR, my tokayo, JR. So the most hated person, JR used SMG. And you also shown vulnerability because you shared that story. You see, it is very, some people, they're very reserved. They do not share their stories very comfortably to anyone. And I actually appreciate that very much. In the future, I would love to see you be more vulnerable, because in Toastmasters, you do not only just speak and just do vocal variety or do this, you share yourself to people. And that way, they would be able to relate to you, and you will be able to be an effective speaker. But overall, I appreciate your courage in standing right here and answering that question. Congratulations, JR. Alright. And there. Sorry, I will change until Bandila, don't worry. And overall, I really appreciate everyone's story because this is how we learn in Toastmasters. We did not only learn from every story, we did not only learn from one's vulnerability, but we also learn from evaluation because that's value that we share with everyone. Again, thank you very much and good evening, everyone.
Thank you for the very good evaluation. So Ronald used a very good technique, which is the sandwich method: praise, comment, praise. So that's the usual structure that we use in evaluating someone. And now we'll proceed to the next evaluation, which is the evaluation of Engineer Cyril Cuna's speech. He will be evaluated by Lian Dixon. Area Director Lian Dixon, Advanced Communicator Role.
Cyril, what I love about your speech was that I like how you were consistent in adopting the model of Pearl Harbor. From the start, you elaborated everything that you found in the dangerous advice that they got and how effective or how influential was that dangerous advice they got. So you illustrated the impact of that dangerous advice. So I like the consistency in that aspect. And I like how you presented also the many facets of advices. We can get it from friends, from society, etc., etc. Because we have the tendency to really just get advice from either our mentor, from our bosses, from our friends, from our family, but you included the impact of communal. So I like how you address that areas as far as securing advices and its impact as well. Now, what not so dangerous advice can I offer you in terms of areas for improvement? Now, Cyril, I'd like that before you cross from your opening down to your body, before crossing that, I would suggest that you give us a perspective of what are you going to talk about. What central point are you going to talk about? Such that there are fellow Toastmasters, I have 2 areas of dangerous advice that I would like to share. So that for us, from the perspective of the audience, we will be able to follow you through because you are talking about advices. Now, Cyril, in summary, in spirit of fairness and caring, thank you very much because you have showcased the beauty and learning that we get regardless whether it's a good advice or a dangerous advice. So thank you for that.
Alright. So let's now proceed to the second evaluation, second individual speech evaluation. For Charona's speech, will be evaluated by Advanced Communicator Bronze, Advanced Leader Bronze, your middle. Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm a little bit busy. Alright. So, let's, may we call on Rory Piderada for Dr. Alwin's speech.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and Dr. Alvin. You are a chef tonight, and I will try to put that context in my evaluation. I have an EAT word for you, EAT. E stands for excellent, A for advice, and T for terrific. Let's start with what are the things that are excellent in your speech. First of all, I like how you shared to us about what was your speech all about on your previous speech. You told us that you have the stages of scholarship, you have struggles in your master's degree, and how teaching was part of your career. It helped me to relate to your current speech, and I understood where you're coming from. I also like how you organize your speech. You organize it in a chronological manner, in a way that it would be understandable for everybody. You stated dates. You stated dates that help us to know more about what you felt or what was your experience during that time. I also like the idea that you've applied the feedback that was given to you on the previous speech, which is the good use of eye contact. I noticed that you had the good use of eye contact and you moved along the area as well. It helped you to connect with the audience and let them feel what you're saying. My advice for Toastmaster Alvin, in order for me to help you, let me share to you my advice, my pieces of advice, for you to use that in your future speeches. The first one is you may try to work on your facial expressions and vocal variety. I noticed that from the start to end, you have the same expression. And also, you may try to share to us what was your feeling during that time. When I noticed that when you mentioned that the mayor called you, what was your feeling? Were you scared at that moment? And when the time that you failed a student or a scholar, I was looking for some expression of how you felt as a teacher to the student. This vocal variety and facial expression would help the audience to maintain interest, and it will help you to catch their attention while speaking in front. Then, another recommendation is I noticed that at the end you mentioned thank you. At the end, you may try to avoid saying thank you because at the end of the day, it's the audience should be thanking you for delivering a good speech. Overall, the terrific part of your speech is the ending. You have a compelling statement. You've mentioned that